there, fourth graders. This is Mrs. Knight here, and we are going to work together again on a math lesson with equivalent fractions with unlike denominators. We're going to add fractions with tenths and hundredths this time, as well as looking into the decimal form of fractions. Look forward to working with you. Have fun. Let's take a moment to look at the relationship between tenths and hundredths. Since the tenth is less than 1 whole, we will write 0 in the ones place. And then we're going to take the decimal point, and we have 2 in the tens place because there are 2 tens. And let's take a look at the picture of that in a 100 frame. So we have this 100 frame 10 by 10 grid broke up into tenths, 10 equal sections, 10 equal columns, and 2 of them are shaded, 2 tenths. Now think about what else we know about 2 tenths and the relationship to hundredths, because we can also write 2 tenths. Remember, this is the tenths place, but if we write a 0 here, this can also be written as 20 hundredths because there are 20 shaded out of 100. So we know an equivalent fraction to 2 tenths would be 20 100ths. Let's take a look at another fraction. We have the fraction 4 tenths. So if we look at this 100 grid again, we know that it can be looked at with tenths because we can split a 100 grid into 10 equal parts, because 10 times 10 is 100. So each of these lines will delineate the tenths. So there's our 10 equal parts, and we're going to shade 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 4 tenths. Let's look at some equivalent fractions to 4 tenths. We have 4 tenths, and if we have 10 sections in each of those tenths, we now have an equivalent fraction of 40 100ths. Okay, we know that there's 40 sections, 40 little squares out of 100. As I was thinking about tenths and hundredths today, I was thinking about a meter stick in class, and because I'm home, I don't have a meter stick, but I built one, and each of those spaces is 1 centimeter long, and this meter stick, it goes to that 1 hole, is 100 centimeters long. So there's 100 little spaces between that 0 and the 1 hole. And right there in the middle, I placed for us the 5 tenths and the 50 100ths. Now let's think about the 50 100ths for a minute. So that's telling us that there's 50 centimeters, 50 spaces up into that point, and 50 more to make a total of 100 to the 1 whole. So 50 out of 100. So let's think about this half of a meter and think of it in terms of tenths or decimeters. So we have 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, and 5 tenths. So right now we have a picture of 5 tenths is equivalent to 50 100ths. Let's take a look at form of a decimal and think of this also as 50 100ths written like that. What about the decimal 41 hundredths? We know that it's going to be less than 50 100ths and more than 4 tenths, and so we count 10, 20, 30, 40 100ths, and then 41 100ths placed right there. Let's take another look at another one. We have the decimal 7 tenths. So let's count over tenths. We have 1 tenth, 2 tenths, 3 tenths, 4 tenths, 5 tenths, 6 tenths, and we have 7 tenths right there. Excellent. I would like you to go into the Google Draw that I created for you and order your fractions on the number line on there. When you're thinking about fractions on a number line, always start with the fractions that you know. So look at the number line. I go from 0 to 1, and they're in 1/10 increments. So there are 10 equal spaces on this number line. I am going to read my decimals and my decimal fractions and see which ones are familiar to me. 25 hundredths, 10 hundredths, 40 hundredths, 3/6, 25 hundredths, 99 hundredths, 100, and 50 hundredths. So I know from the lesson, this one rings a bell, so I'm going to drag this one down, 51 hundredths. And I know that 25 hundredths is half of 50, so that would have to go halfway between, so that wouldn't be 2/10 or 3/10, it'd be right there in between 20 hundredths and 30 hundredths, so there's 25 hundredths. 3/6 is equivalent fraction to 1/2, so I would put that there. 99 hundredths and 1/100th would be way apart from each other, almost a whole away from each other, so I know that's right close to that 1, not quite there. And this is right close to that 0, not quite there, right? Okay, I have 3 left. Oh, this one looked familiar. This 25 hundredths and this 25 hundredths, those are equivalent fractions and decimals. I'm going to put that right on here. I'm going to move this down, be a little more organized. Which leaves us 2 left. 41 hundredths should ring a bell to that decimal fraction of equivalent fraction of 4/10. I'm going to go down here. 40 hundredths is equivalent to 4/10. Let's make sure it's right on top of there. And that leaves me 10 hundredths, and that is an equivalent decimal to the decimal fraction of 1/10. That's what your number line should look like. Make sure you screenshot yours and feel free to fix your mistakes before you do. Remember, we learn more with mistakes. So let's look at some adding of fractions with denominators of tenths and hundredths. So first we're going to look at a problem 5/10 plus 2/10. And we know because 5/10 is equal to 1/2 that the sum is going to be greater than a half. Let's take a look at the number line, and we jump 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, and then 2 more tenths, landing us at 7/10. So 5/10 plus 2/10 is equal to 7/10. Let's look at another one together. 4 100ths plus 38 100ths. Both of them will have 100ths as a denominator, so we can add them. We know that 38 hundredths is less than a half quite a bit, and 4 100ths, so we're looking at maybe something greater than a half. Let's take a look. We have 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and 38 hundredths, because we look at the larger number first, 38 hundredths, and then we just add 4 more hundredths, landing us at 42 100ths. Oh, that puts us less than a half. Whoopsies, my prediction was wrong, but that's okay. We learn more when we make mistakes, right? So 42 100ths is our answer for that addition problem. Now let's look at the sum of 2/10 and 30 100ths. We're looking at 2/10 plus 30 100ths. Those two fractions don't have common denominators, so we need to find common denominators. Let's think about our learning about 2/10 and think of it in terms of hundredths. So we have 20 100ths plus 30 100ths, because we can keep that the same. Oh, that makes me think of 2/10 plus 3/10. We could have looked at it in the form of tenths. That would be equal to a half. Let's take a look at the number line. A tenth plus a tenth plus a tenth plus a tenth plus a tenth. We're going to hop all the way to 5/10. That would be right in the middle between 0 and 1. So 20 100ths plus 30 100ths is equal to 50 100ths, and that would be 5/10. And we know that that's also equal to 1/2. One more problem we can look at 18 100ths plus 4 tenths. Sorry about the bouncing star. I have 18 hundredths plus 4 tenths. Those don't have common denominators. Let's take a look at converting one of them. We're going to take 18 hundredths and keep it the same, but we're going to take 4 tenths and convert it to 40 100ths. So these have common denominators now. We know that that's going to be greater than 1/2 right here because we add 1, 2, 3, 4 tenths or 40 100ths and 18 more. That would put it 40 plus 18 is 58 hundredths here on the number line. 18 100ths plus 40 100ths is equal to 58 100ths.